Panelists. My guests are seated for this morning. And I start with Martin Kpebu. He's a lawyer, and you have enjoyed him for a couple of times now on this show, and you keep asking us to bring him back. Martin, thank you for joining us this morning too.
My pleasure.
Dr. Seydou Alidu, a senior lecturer, Department of Political Science, University of Ghana. We haven't had you in a long while, Doc.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for making the time to come here. And Ace Anan Ankuma is a lawyer. I can't say any more than that. Thank you for coming, Ace. Thank you. Right. So they say ladies first, but I chose it this way. Special place, Mona Kote, former Deputy Minister of Finance. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Samson. Good morning.
Good morning, and happy belated yesterday,
International Women's Day.
Right.
Balance for better.
Balance for better, yeah. I hear of a Chinese proverb that sounds almost like scripture, but if you are not careful, you may interpret it to say it conflicts with the scripture, that God could not be physically present in every home. So he decided that he will make woman.
Amen
so that they will
to
be present in every home. Yeah.
There's another one. He made men first.
Great,
Fantastic,
great. Okay, I love that one.
So we are
I love that one.
And she's the perfection.
Yeah.
Isn't it obvious?
Yeah. You see, and from where it is coming from, like, Martin, when you draft your first process, the second process is always never the first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's far better.
So I think he looked at
Right.
men and said,
Great.
damn, I can do better than
Great.
this.
Great.
Yeah, you're all
great.
scoring points for
Right.
before you get home.
You know?
Right.
Good brownie
Okay.
points.
Okay. Right. Okay, so, and I'm excited. This is a watch just donated to me by my very good friend and producer, Sami Odame, and his family on my birthday. Thank you very much.
Bribery and corruption.
Bribery and corruption, it says. This is Africa, gifts are allowed. Okay. Now, let's settle down for the serious business of this morning. And once again, we are going to spend quite a bit of time on the issues of party militias and what the state ought to do swiftly to avoid the danger that we are told by the experts, stares at us. And then we'll look at the Short Commission and matters coming out of there. You have followed the process so far this week. What do you say about what is going on? People are surprised that national security persons can take only 3 days of training to become operatives in the national security, among others. Okay. We'll also go to the law school, like I say, to find out why there's been such massive failures in the last few years. Of course, there's one other history, dates long back, we'll refer to it, but that makes me happy that Ace Anan Ankuma is here. He's had a lot of good solutions proffered in this regard. So let's quickly go to listen and watch this piece, very brief piece, cut out of a documentary done by Manasseh Azore Awene of the JoyNews team.
JoyNews investigation has revealed that the group has 2 offices in this building, one as the secretariat of the group and another as the office of the commander. The Ministry of Interior, which licenses private security agencies, has told JoyNews the I Group is not licensed to provide any security services. Sources within the group, however, say the I Group undertakes security operations in and out of Accra. A private legal practitioner, Martin Kpebu, says it is an offense to operate a security group without any license from the Interior Ministry.
Once your checks have revealed that this vigilante is not registered, yet they are providing the services, then, unless there are any other facts that we are not aware of, it means that there is a breach of the law, and it comes with very serious consequences. If a person both for the persons employed as the security guards and also for the organizations. Regulation 14 makes it an offense for people or a person to work for an unregistered security organization, and also for the organization itself to provide security services when it's not been duly registered. And so Regulation 15 says that in that case, if the person is found guilty, so it means that after this, if you make a report and the police also investigate and confirm what you've already investigated, they want to prosecute, they are facing a fine and up to 1 year imprisonment.
Right! One.
Right, so we are back, guys. You're caught on camera. Okay, so we are back. That's just a sneak peek into what Manasseh Azori has been doing in the last 2 years, I understand. You would have followed government statements on what has happened and a rejoinder also, or a rebuttal from the JoyNews team. So let's begin this way. Martin, you have been on this table for quite a number of times that we have had to deal with this subject. I want your very preliminary comments briefly about what you have come to know about this particular documentary.
What I've come to know. Okay.
Because you are featured in the documentary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So when Manasseh approached me some time ago, that was I think early February. Yes. And mentioned the topic. To be candid, I was shocked from what he told me before I even saw the video, because when he mentioned that they were training at the former seat of government, that's the Osu Castle, I was like, are you sure? You see? And apart from then, he went on to show me the video. I was like, what? If you ask him, I kept talking. I was just talking. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, is this a dream, or that's for real? So the long and short of it is that it actually shook me to the core. And so I think that His Excellency should do something about this. And at the same time, too, look, I think we've called upon the Peace Council and those people enough. They should either set up, or we would, as citizens, have to start organizing to demonstrate. Because when I saw it, I just saw that, no. It had just gone way too far. In the former seat of government, the Osu Castle, whether it has become, it's no longer a security zone or not, look, it's of no moment. The point is that you can't...
The Minister of Information says that for a while now, upon the declaration of the President, it is for the purposes of a museum, so
that's why I said that, yes. So whether it is a security zone or not, that's whether it has ceased to be. It used to be, well, let's say, yes, it used to be. That's why I say it's no longer. And I'm saying, look, it's of no moment. The substance of the matter, in law, we always talk about form and substance. The substance of the matter is that, look, what has happened is too egregious for us to keep quiet about it. For crying out loud, where is national security? They didn't gather intelligence. You see, later on, he showed that he had interviewed national security, and they said they attempted to sack them, that's to take them out of the place. But somebody more powerful torpedoed it. You see it. So it tells you that there are more powerful people up there, the unseen hand, and that doesn't bode well for our democracy. No, it doesn't. And you see their numbers. They said they number about 5,000. That's
across the country, according to their one of their own leaders.
Yes, it's terribly bad, terrible. That's why I think that...
So you see them in a perspective that they don't, even though they have a website and they have clearly stated that they perform security services.
Yeah.
We hear from the government response that this is almost like, an employment agency, recruitment agency, and that they pose no threats, if you like. When you look at the manner they conduct themselves in the documentary that you see, is it not far-fetched to suggest that they are a militia?
Look, I would not say far-fetched. Well, militia, I want to stay away from, because that word, you know, in our literature, if you look from Kwame Nkrumah's days till now, we've been comfortable with vigilantism, okay? And also the militia looks more military, more weapons and, you know, ammunition. So it looks far more militarized, you see. So I prefer the vigilantism, okay? At least we are used to it over all these decades.
Okay.
Look.
And when you say vigilantism, you mean negative vigilantism?
Exactly, exactly, right. The negative one. You see, in the tape, the video, did you see that when they went to pray, as you know, often they will start with prayers. He said, "We are gathered here in the name of the NPP." Yeah, where's to that effect? And they prayed for the president, the vice, and all that, and the lieutenants of the chief of staff. When they say chief of staff, that's the, I think that's the Keja man, yes. As the chief of staff, his lieutenants. You say, please, that's indoctrination. Every day we are gathered here in the name of the NPP. There's a part of the video that says that they are not there to cause trouble to the president. No, rather they are on his side. There's another part of the video that states that the president was very happy, you know, at the Dombo event when they provided security. And you see, that's where the breach of the law occurs, because they provided security at that event. But the regulations about licensing private security agencies totally prohibits it and makes it an offense, as I referred to earlier. But the substance is this. So you see clearly in the video, they are providing security. Providing security. So that's a vigilantism element. So, I mean, and I'm not sure even the MPP are denying that. What they're saying is that they are not associated with. But if you are not associated with, how do you hide the services of such an organization?
The Samuel Oku has said that they are not a vigilante, even though they are not associated or connected to the NPP. I'll come back. We'll deal with this a lot more extensively. We're going to speak to Dr. Kwesi Enin on the phone as well. But, Doc, you have also followed this. I mean, let's look at it and be candid. Is this a militia? They are all suited, and we are told and we see them at the conference center doing the security provision for the Dombo event, and some of them provide an audience, and they meet in the open in the morning between 7 and 12 in the afternoon.
Okay, thank you, Samson. I also want to take from the caution of my senior colleague that I'll be very careful using the word militia, because it comes with a lot of military sophistication. But I do believe the kind of drills that we're doing was meant for people who are going to hold guns, though I didn't see them wielding weapons, so I'll still not use the word militia. But I have two important concerns. One, the privileged venue that they had access to. And then two, whether the president was actually aware or not aware. Even if the old seat of government is not a security zone, but it is a privileged location. Ministers of states sit there. Even the very commission that we have set up.
There are three ministries under the presidency at that place.
That occupy that space. And then the Emil Short Commission sits there in an attempt to deal with these menace. And I think they alternate. Maybe when they sit and do their own thing, then they also come and train. That is a serious cause for concern.
Government's reaction to that, and I don't want to wait for you to, so we forget. Reaction to that is that they had been ejected by October of 2018. So it is not true that this moment they were still there whilst the Mission Commission was there. However, the counter from Manasseh Azorawuni is that by the 7th of January, he filmed at that place and actually led them, did a filming through from the Osu Castle through to the event that they had to attend. And also that later in December, they had a party at the same place, right? And they had meetings over there. He's also reliably informed that it was only yesterday in the morning that a task force of military and police persons went there and locked up the
I
place.
think I just saw a news site. I'm not sure whether it's today or this morning. That
Okay.
police cleared, what's the name? Vigilante groups after JoyNews expose. So I'm still not sure which one should take precedence. And I'm also very sure that this issue seriously indexes a specific group of people that are in power. And definitely I know they will react. But my concern is the president aware, as the documentary want to portray, that the president saw them and was asking which group of, they were very beautiful, he was very happy. If he's aware, and he knows this group are not licenses, why should they keep on operating? Two, if he's not aware, then it means there's somebody in a very privileged position that is protecting this group without even the knowledge of the president. That also has security implication. Now let's look at the policy implication. The president has been calling for dialogue between...
No, but you asked that question. Is it possible that the president will not be aware?
Yes, it's possible. But even there are two cases. In the documentary, they portray it as if the president is aware.
Because their leader is boasting.
Yes,
that the president asked about them.
Yeah, and they said, oh, those are the people from the castle.
Refer to them as his children.
Yes. So if that is the case, it means there is hypocrisy on the part of the president, who is calling for serious, honest dialogue to disband this group, but at the same time shielding them in a location that is highly privileged. And that has implication for the way we deal with these menace going forward.
The director of communications at the presidency, Eugene Ahin, had told Manasseh Azuri that the presidency was unaware of the presence of any such grouping at that venue.
And Samson, that also has an implication. It means, even right under the nose of the president, people are training citizens on military drills without even the knowledge of the president, without the knowledge of the national security.
Maybe that is not what they are doing. That is why it doesn't have to come to the attention of the president.
But Samson, whatever it is, the way the documentary portrayed it, and the kind of drills and the kind of responses that they say, it's not like the president response, the government response was they are providing job. We have NAPCO. NAPCO is doing this. A lot of government interventions that's providing job. They were not being taught how to prepare CV, how to respond to interviews and all those things. They were given military drills kind of training. This is that's why NAPCO and all those things are there. Government have a lot of intervention that's just towards providing jobs. So I don't see the correlation between what they were doing as portrayed in the documentary and the whole essence and justification of providing jobs. So I still think that whichever way we look at it, whether the president was aware or the national security was aware or they were not aware, it both have implications. And the implication is that it goes to portray the stance that the political parties are the direct beneficiaries of these organizations. And it will be very difficult for them to seriously commit to disbanding them. Especially when it comes to light that the same person calling for us to disband this is either aware or not aware about these things that's going on, and which claim serious allegiance to the government of the day.
Interesting. Mona, is it difficult to believe this part of the statement by the government where it says the I group, and that's their name, the I group initially succeeded in using the garden grounds of the Castle Osu for its activities because its promoter, one Nana Reko-Addo, that's a former bodyguard of the president, had been assigned an office there to work with a task force to retrieve landed properties and vehicles in the possession of officials of the Eswa Mahama administration. After the conclusion of the work of the task force in August 2018, he subsequently converted the office allocated to him into a private business office for the stated purposes of his company. Admittedly, this should not have been allowed to happen in the first place, but was quickly dealt with in October 2018, when he was evicted from the premises, check this, by a joint operation involving personnel of national security and the police. Is it difficult to believe this?
Samson, this is difficult for me to say because ordinarily government has all the power to do many things. But I have to say it is difficult to believe. Because, for one, if they were evicted at that time by both national security and the police, surely for them to return, there are still reps of the police and national security at the castle. Whether we like it or not, the castle still hosts government activities. I mean, this story about the museum thing is all well and good. Perhaps that is the intent. But we know that government is using the castle as a Flagstaff House annex. And, you know, we won't argue about that. Ministers may have offices there. In fact, we see the Mill Short Commission taking place there. So it's fine. Therefore, there are security people constantly in that vicinity. And for them not to know that this gentleman is still holding court there, even to have morning sessions or whatever sessions in the garden, it's difficult for us to believe that they've been evicted and they are no longer there. In fact, Samson, they are there. I mean, if in January they proceeded from there to go for some activity and back, they are in that premise.
In December 2018.
Yes, in December 2018, because we were, government is saying they left October, but in December they were there. One of the things that is a little unnerving is the fact that the president himself is appearing to not know about these people now. When he calls for the end of vigilantes, I agree with the gentleman who just spoke that it is even difficult for him because political parties always use these people. After you've used them, you now come and say you are disbanding them. We will need an independent source to handle the disbanding of them. But when he says that he does not know, does that mean that his national security capos are not giving him the right information? Does that mean that his own intel as a president is not sending him those signals? That is unnerving for us as Ghanaians, because we expect that the president of this nation will know certain things. And some of these things, even as they upset the nation, they also affect his next term. So one would think that he would want to take some action to protect that. At least there are many ways of skinning a cat. There are many ways that he can have conversations with these people to back off, for him to do whatever he has to do, to let the police and the military be in charge for this time. They served him at a certain time.
Okay.
Now this DI group, we can't, just for me being neutral on this, I'm not sure that I can link the DI group directly to him, even though the gentleman had been his bodyguard before. The gentleman was used to play a certain role which served government. I don't even know why he was used. Maybe the chief of staff or whoever allowed that. But that came to an end. He continued to stay there. Somebody did turn a blind eye. When we watched that video, even though we didn't see them using military and so forth and all that, we heard that eventually, after 2 or 3 attempts, someone amongst the president's men admitted that, oh, don't you know these people? They are so. So eventually that came out. But I was also a little surprised when Mr. President didn't immediately recognize them. It is possible that he's even forgotten they are there. But his people on the ground have let him down by not letting him know.
Right. So you just hold on briefly.
But we don't believe that.
And 8, the third paragraph of the statement issued by government informs us that the Castle Osu is not in capital, is not a security zone. This was part of why people felt this was an anathema of sorts, that a security zone is where you have this training going on. But again, I would like that you may also pay a little attention to the concluding paragraph 2, where it says that a joint security, I just read that a while ago, let me go for that again, where it says that, it says, it was quickly dealt with in October 2018 when he was evicted from the premises by a joint operation involving personnel of national security and police. That appears to tell me a bigger story, that this is a former bodyguard just been given an office to operate as, you know, retriever of vehicles and so on, properties. And for him to move out of that office, it takes national security and police.
I mean, Samson, you're spot on. That was a part of the statement that struck me as well. On the two sides, I mean, I think there's been a little bit of some throwing out of words. You know, some are hyperboles. You know, on the two sides. But you're right. If this is just a gentleman illegally occupying prime real estate in an old slave castle, which is the former seat of government, why would you need not just police, but also national security? Or just not national security, but police, just to evict him? That line, you know, betrays the fact that, as they say, we have a problem, Houston. There's a problem. And what we have seen is probably the symptom of a much deeper seated problem, which I hope we have time today to discuss, because I think that these things came up right from about 1953.
Exactly.
That as a people, we militarize power, whether it's a military government or civilian government. We think that the highest expression of political power is how we militarize it. But we will get to it. Now, for me, and I'm often criticized for having absolutely no ability to appreciate anything outside the law. That's fine. For me, this is a simple issue of the law. Now, this supposed militia, vigilante, escort, whatever services group, had a website.
Were you going to say escort?
Almost. Almost.
Definitely not escort.
Well, there are two kinds of escorts.
Exactly.
There's private escort services and there's formal, you know, escort services.
The police service, there is an escort.
But, but this group, the I, was not escorting anyone.
Oh, you wait a second.
So
they had a website.
They had a website, yeah.
It's down this morning.
Okay, I haven't checked.
I just checked.
Okay.
And the website says now, this morning, 2 minutes ago.
Previously, the website directed you to the Osu Castle as where they operate from.
This is what the website says, and it's actually contradictory in itself. DI group unit, site under construction, nothing found. It seems we can't find what you are looking for. Perhaps searching can help. So the site is down. But before the site went down, we went looking. What do they advertise as the job they do?
Right.
Now everybody's talking about job hunting. That is just one. Number one. They provide guard services, man guarding or property, closed circuit TV, DVR for security for special events, mobile patrols, VIP stroke executive protection. Watch the words very carefully, VIP from an executive protection. When we begin to dive into the history of what we now call vigilantism, we'll find all of this coming up. Diplomatic man guarding and facility guarding services. That's why I almost went into escorts.
Okay.
Diplomatic man guarding. Wow. It doesn't mean they've done it, but they're advertising that we can do this. Detective and investigation services, monitoring and tracking assignments, skills training and improvement services. So they advertise there to the whole world that these are the services that they offer. And from their side, it's an incorporated company. Now, these services that they claim to offer remain very interesting in the law. Because when I read about private security services organization, section 39 of Act 350, which the Police Service Act, says it's an organization that undertakes private investigation. That's what they say they're doing. As to facts or the character of a person, or which perform services of watching, guarding, patrolling, or carriage export for the purpose of providing protection against crime. So their statement as to what they do, their authorized business, so to speak, falls squarely within the definition of private security organization under the Police Service Act. The Police Service Act then empowers the passage of a legislative instrument to regulate that business. And LI 1571, which we referred to, states is clear that you shall not establish an organization to provide private security services, the private investigation, watching, guarding, patrolling, or carried for the purpose of providing protection against crime, unless you have been granted a license for that purpose by what is now the Minister for the Interior. And services without the license, you commit an offense. And you read it from Regulation 14 that if not just you, the person providing, but even your employees, all those people you see, to the extent that they are providing a service that requires licensing and which has not been licensed, commit an offense, and you could go to jail for up to 1 million, up to 1 year, or pay a fine, or both. Good. So here is an admission on the website of these people and from the videos that we are committing an offense. What should happen?
Arrest them.
Arrest them. Put them before court. This is their own clear admission that they are operating to the extent that they don't have a license.
How do you arrest a group you evicted and you don't know where they are?
Well, you evicted and they came back. And they only yesterday or 2 days ago went back to re-evict. Who did they evict? They didn't evict chairs and tables. They evicted people. There shouldn't have been eviction. There should have been an arrest. Eviction means you can go and sin no more. But these guys on the face of it are guilty as sin. But they evicted and they have the temerity, impudence, audacity to return to the prime real estate, the old slave fort, and then they have to be re-evicted. And so, you see, the law just does not work in this country. If it worked, we won't be having these problems. And so, they breach the law, nobody tries anybody, they are evicted, they return, and it has to take this expose, which as I said, include a few hyperboles, which I think are good because it got all of us are aware of it. So to me, it's justified, even if some of it cannot be directly supported. So they committed. Why have they not been arrested for the purposes of a trial? If we don't deal with these things in the way and manner that the law requires, then it is thrown out there. We talk about it for 48 hours, and then almost with the memory of the wasp, it disappears, and something else comes up, and we discuss that. So to my mind, and you see, and let's explain it very simply. It's like driving. You cannot drive without a license. You may be the best driver, but if you sit behind the car and move it, you have driven. If you don't have a license, you have committed an offense. The only permission to drive is that you obtain a license. It's the same thing. You cannot provide these services unless you have a license. If you don't have the license, and that is the point, if they do not have the license, then an offense has been committed. But over and above that, if they are using state facilities without proper permission, there's unlawful entry, clearly. There's rent to be paid, to be surcharged. And so a lot of laws are triggered. And Ghana is becoming notorious not for the absence of laws, because we even have a law that regulates mosquitoes. Mosquito Act. Yes, right. There's a law that says you can, if you leave a puddle and you breathe mosquitoes, you have committed an offense. If we can have, and this was the mosquitoes or not, and we move into the Public Health Act now. So if we have laws that regulate something as mundane but as serious as breathing of mosquitoes leading to malaria, we have laws on almost everything. But we are notorious for garnishing paper with the law and never enforcing it.
Do you have a disagreement with the description in the documentary as that they are a vigilante or a party militia? And don't you think that it is possible that they may have been a vigilante group and now have decided to refine or transform? Now, this is why I asked that question. On June 11, 2012, they have been in the media. Somehow, they have not shied away from the media. That's why they actually have a website. The Daily Guide reported, the headline was, Vigilante Group Vows to Protect Ballot Box. And the first few paragraphs say, Leader of the I Vigilante, a group in the New Patriotic Party, Umar Farouk, aka Choman, has described the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, NPP, Nana Akufo-Addo, as a pacifist. Choman, a personal bodyguard of Nana Addo, said he had been close to the NPP leader for a long time, stating that the presidential candidate frowns on acts that could destabilize the country. He made the remarks after members of the Ashanti Regional Branch of the I Vigilante marched through the principal streets of Kumasi last Sunday during a float. Formed in 2009, the I Vigilante group is made up of energetic male and female NPP members across the country whose primary target is to protect NPP members against any attacks by lawless people. So what do you see?
Clearly, I mean, the sweetness of the pudding is in the eating of it. And it's only when you poke the eye of the cadaver that you see the worms. Clearly, it's a history. This group just didn't revolve. It has evolved. It has morphed from one form into the other. And it's in the arrest. It's in the interrogation that we will find out what the truth is. The problem is that, Samson, we are a nation that is also, apart from allowing things to run, after every 48 hours, we are in love with headlines and terminology. Now, if you talk about a vigilante, it's a member of a self-appointed group of citizens who undertake law enforcement in their community without legal authority, typically because the legal agencies are thought to be inadequate. We are glorifying these people with the term vigilante. A vigilante can be negative or positive, right? But we are glorifying them with these terms. Some of these are formed for the purpose of crime. It is organized crime. It is criminal under our Criminal Offences Act 29. And so clearly they are seeking to morph, to evolve from one form to the other. But if they've got to stop, they have to stop. And the law ought to be applied for them to stop. So the headlines attract people. A lot of people just look at the headline, won't even read the story. And I've said this 1,000 times. Sometimes when you read the story, the story is the opposite of the headline. And so people just look at the headline, look at the terminology that have been thrown in, militia, vigilante, whatever, and the rest of the story is hidden. But as we begin to, open the paragraphs, you begin to see the animal for what it really is, and not be confused by the feathers on it. And so we need to begin to look a little bit deeper as a people. Stop looking at just the headlines. Go beyond the headline and read the story of the reputation.
Let me just say something on that.
Yes.
We've all said a lot of things, and you've thrown some light on it. There's an important issue here: law not being able to enforce. But when these people were evicted by the police and national security, and they were able to come back. And in fact, they were able to offer a service to government when they attended the Dombo honoring thing. They were there. They were seen by everyone. The president asked, and someone gave them cover. I think an important thing we need to discuss today is who is giving them that cover. We've seen from the history that they clearly have an MPP background. Even though their services is trying to be general, we know who they are. There's no need for us to even get an investigator on that is there. Who is giving them that cover? And the president by now knows who that person is and should just call that person.
This is who they say they are. Why do we call them vigilante or militia when they say this is who they are? Now on their website, which is now down, they say that the I was conceived out of the growing need for more efficient jobs and security service in Ghana. It is absolutely owned by Ghanaians. Absolutely owned by Ghanaians, licensed and registered. We found out that's not true. All of our personnel are experienced, well trained by retired military officers and are very reliable. Our personnel also go through rigorous screening background checks for crime history and drug tests. The I Group is bringing together the skills, knowledge, and expertise of a wide range of senior personnel with specialist backgrounds, both human resources and in the security industry. We are highly qualified, but also operate as a continuously learning organization, and their motto is vigilance and protection. Why do you choose to call them vigilance?
I will answer that, Samson. I will answer that. With me is the law. Once again, I'll talk about the law. Act 29, Criminal Offences Act, Section 189, unlawful training, where 3 or more persons meet or are together for the purposes of military training or exercise. They are ex-military people in exercise without the permission of the president of an attend military training. But which means that the law probably assumes that it is so notorious that it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be defined. If that is what they say they're doing, there's a likelihood that there's a further offense that has been committed. Do you remember in the last days of the NDC when the NPP brought in the South African to do the training? This was the section they were charged under, unlawful training.
Yes.
And so, if by their own words we are involved in unlawful training, I'm not saying that's sufficient evidence.
Yes, it's not.
It is at least enough for us to trigger the prosecution process or the investigation. They are breaching on so many fronts that they are breaching LI 1571. They are breaching section 189. What stops us from getting the
They are not even sure they are licensed to
So from what you also saw in the video, beyond what they state and say they are, from what you saw in the video, are their training? Are they military-like or vigilante or militia simply because they respond to military, is it accolades or whatever it is? The terms that the military use. These are the terms they are using, and they call their leader commander. Is that enough?
Something. I'm just going to reiterate what my senior colleague thinks. I think they are a bunch of criminals that need to be dealt with.
That's it.
Why do I say that? Even in the academic literature, we distinguish between two types of vigilante groups. What we call social control vigilante groups and crime control vigilante groups. The social control vigilante groups, I think, emerged late years. Basically, what they do is that they organize themselves and they protect their social identity. So you see, maybe the KKK, for example, was a social control vigilante group based on race. It could be based on race, it could be based on class, it could be based on identity, religious vigilante. Those were documented in the literature. Now, what we have is crime control vigilante groups. Basically, they ride on the inability of the state security services to enforce law, and then they do it. But in this instance, I don't think these groups are organized for either crime control or social control. They are doing something else, which is against the law, and the law has to deal with them.
They are doing vigilance and protection. That's their motto.
in protection. and that is criminal because they are not licensed to do it.
No.
It's as simple as that.
Enforce the law. If they are innocent, let the court say they are innocent. If they are guilty, let the court say they are guilty. Of course, some of the pictures, young ladies and stuff, doesn't really convey the impression of the military training. But they do several things.
Exactly.
So maybe that's a picture of the job, their job training.
Yes.
But where are the pictures of the security training? If they breach the law, can we apply the law? Well, people say
No, but even if they were set up initially, so-called, to be ballot protectors, you can't just be a ballot protector. We have polling agents. We have a National Electoral Commission that handles these things properly. So we can't have so many layers of other. I mean, you can be there to observe, to watch, to make complaints. But to be a ballot protector, what does that mean? And these are the things that have resulted in what happened at Ayawaso West.
Thank you. When we dive deeper, we will see the historical antecedents to all that we are seeing.
Right.
But all we are doing probably right now is dealing with the symptoms.
Okay.
There's a lot of depth. That the root, we need a root and stem and branch turn around of this situation. Right now, we're just dealing with the fruit.
Right.
And it's not going to
Martin,
work.
there are those who say, if this is what the government says, that they can't feel safe. In the statement, government says, admittedly, this should not have been allowed.
Exactly.
It was allowed.
Yes.
This should not have been allowed. But it was stopped later. So, is it fair when they demonstrate to you that they stopped it for the criticism to say we cannot be secure under the government which saw this thing and which allowed it in the first place and now says ought not have happened? And even when they needed to remove the guy from the office, the state property, they needed joint national security and police.
Okay. Yes. So quite clearly, I mean, people are justified in saying they don't feel safe. Yes, because as I mentioned earlier, the scale of this organization is beyond proportion, way beyond proportion. 5,000. It doesn't bode well for us. So citizens are justified in saying they are not safe. That's why it's.
Could their leader be just boasting by saying there are about 5,000 across the country?
It's possible, yes. We can't rule that out. So we can do further investigations.
Thank you.
We can, yes, that will help. But so far, to the extent that the state allowed them to provide security at the Dombo event, that was it. That was it. That was the lowest end. The president was present, ministers of state.
The IGP.
Yes,
the vice president.
Yes. And the security was being provided by the I group. That is totally off. Totally off. And it was just a breach of security itself. For the president to entrust his security to the I group.
No, is it correct to say the president will entrust his security to the I group?
There was
Somebody brought them.
Yes.
I'm
No, what
that
you
is
mean?
that would have been for the event ground.
Yes,
but that will not be the president's security.
No, at all.
so the context is that he is present and the people providing security there is the I group. So in a context, it applies. I'm not saying personally. Of course, I'm not.
I think it was additional security.
But if you
No,
know,
it was,
if
let's
you
get
know
it,
about the
senior.
security when the president of it,
Yes.
there's a call, there's a
Yes.
there's a ring.
Yes.
I mean, I can't go into all of that,
Yeah.
but you're right that they
Yes,
were there.
they were there. The number
They are
about
very
400.
present.
So that is the context. So let's come to the numbers.
And if
400.
this group,
Yes.
as they profess themselves,
Yes.
is pro-NPP.
Yes.
And they are there to protect the president, like they say, we are not here to fight
Something
president,
that's not their
the minister.
work.
What is the fear? Because they will not harm the president.
The fear, number one.
Your fear will be where your president is in the midst of people and elements who can harm him.
Something the
Number
fear
one.
is that they are getting recognition.
Yes, number one, it means that
is
state institutions are beginning to stop working. The police and the military, that is the way they are. And we have other security organizations. That is their job. If the police don't have enough, they will call for the military to join, customs, and so on and so forth, fire service. So where you put these people aside, the state recognize institutions and begin to use private vigilante groups to provide security for the president, please. Then it means that it's becoming a banana republic.
For events.
Yes.
And something.
Yes.
The bad thing about this thing is I see once we allow this thing to happen,
And there are
then
400.
other people can also form we're giving
Exactly.
them recognition.
Yeah.
And that will encourage other groups to come together in the same manner and get similar recognition. And we'll get to a point that every individual in the country will belong to a vigilante group.
Yes.
And just take
So Martin, you also subscribe to the description vigilante or militia?
No, so I mean,
This is who they are?
No, they are vigilante.
They are vigilante.
They are vigilante because, as I said, look, let's face the facts. In our culture, you see, the extent of the militarization is limited. So because it's very limited, the vigilante is okay. And remember, for the past weeks, I've been reciting history here that even when Liman was in power, we had the vigilante. They were used as community watchdog. Okay? We had vigilante. They were acting to help prevent the Kalabule in our past when the AFRC came. Okay? And then when Liman took over, he took these same people and used them to provide community policing services. And then there were spillovers, and so people began to complain. When you read the Legon Observer and the rest, people complained that the president should rein them in. Okay? And then we went back to the Kwame Nkrumah days. Remember, I mentioned the Jemfi, when the CPP supporter was killed by a UP supporter. There are several of those cases. And throughout our history, we've referred to these cases as vigilantism. Okay? So I prefer to stay rather than introduce the militia. You know, the militia, as I'm saying, because of the weaponization, too much of it. A few weapons here and there. That's our cultural context in Ghana. Cultural and political context.
Since Martin has gone into the history, maybe it's time to dive into.
Yes,
Okay,
maybe we should have more time for
what
the
I'll do is
history.
I'll take a break, and when we return,
Yes.
we'll get a bit into the history as we ask the question whether or not any of you believe the leaders of this country, political leaders,
perfect.
who are professing and committing to disbanding party militia or vigilante.
Okay.
In my research, there's no vigilante in Ghana. He referred to the KKK. I went through the process, and I have for a long time insisted we don't have any vigilante group in Ghana. All right, we'll be right back.
Okay.